In this video help tutorial, we're going to do some discovery of what information is required in order to use the application and how it's input and how you edit it. Then we'll come and look at all these individual screens and explain the usage of them one at a time. Let's start out with the entry data in this screen. The CRM, or Customer Relationship Management, is important to managing a project or project management. What we're looking at when we start a new record by saying add a record, as we said before, we're going to indicate a new item as far as the number that is added to the system for that project. If I wanted to go look at both of the current records that are in here for examples, I would go to the list view. In this case, we have two projects, 1 and 2. The date that it was added, the proposal ID number, which will later, after the proposal gets going, become the project number, and the company name for each individual company that is involved in that project, and the contact person, which is the primary person that your company would get in touch with if they have questions or they want to set up meetings or whatever. In this case, we're going to go to that record, and we're going to see that we added in, like I said, the ID was created when the new added record. And down here, the actual proposal name we'd put in. In this case, we're just using example 1. While I'm here, I'll point out that when you receive the application, if it has an example record in it, what you would do is to go ahead and overwrite the information. For example, I would take out example 1. I would leave the yellow fields alone. Those are the fields that are permanent linking records. What I would do here in this case is I would add my own proposal number, and I'll point out that you can use any approach you want. In this case, I just made a simple P for proposal or project, and then I put a sequence number in there. You could start it out with P1 if you wanted to, just to show that you can make it anything you want to, and then sequence it when you have a new record. You could sequence it each time with a new project number with one digit moved ahead. So it'd be 1,000, and all the way at the end it would be 1,000, or in this case 100,001. Like I said, you can approach it any way you want. Then you would go ahead and put in your proposal identification name for the project. This helps the marketing people see the name on any screen, and it will help them to understand what the project is, as far as maybe it's an engineering project, a civil project, maybe it's a build to print project. It could even be a construction project. This application allows you to put any kind of a project in that is related to your company and the way your company functions. As we go through the fields, you're going to realize that you have the options to change it to the kind of data you need in any of the drop-downs. And we'll get to that in a second, where all these drop-downs throughout all the different screens are involved. The first thing you want to do is you want to take the proposal date when the proposal was received and when you're going to start working to identify the WBS breakdown for that particular project. You put in the company name you're going to be doing the project with. You should have an RFQ, or request for quote, or a RFP for request for proposal, one of the two, or it could be something on a special note. You may be doing your own project, working for a larger company, and you're going to be receiving requests for quotes for your own company. So you can do anything in the circle as far as managing your project. You would probably be the lead on this if you were the company and you were putting together your own engineering process or whatever your project company does. The company primary contact is whoever the person is, and I just put Cal and a test. That would be the name of the person who is the primary contact. The company address, the city, the state, the zip or postal, the company phone, the major phone that you would be calling to, a website for that company, and the marketing manager who's going to be running all these points of contact and information within your company. The next one is the company notes. Now this can get really verbose as far as all the things you can put in here. Typically what I would do is I would start out by putting a date, so I'd know what the comment was as far as the note is, and then the verbiage text in here for that particular thing. Now you cannot add pictures in this, but there are other places where you can, and I'll point those out later. If you wanted to go to the website for the website of the company, you could click this button. You have to have the http:// and then the company. For example, if I clicked on this and it brought up the warrant screen here, and you'll see that it brings up the company. In this case, HDR is the company. The closest thing to it is this company, and you can go in there and use it. I just threw a generic thing in there as a company. So you can follow into here. If you took the actual URL, now if I click anywhere off of this area right now, it'll go away. What I could do is I could also go down here and take this URL and plug it into your browser if you have like Google Chrome or whatever. Then it would go to that website for that. Okay, so let's recap a little bit here. This is the information for the contacts and information for the company, the proposal name, the proposal number, and then the actual information for the company that you're working with. And then you add any notes at any time that affect the company relationship and what things you want to point out or they want to point out to you. Okay, that is the first portion for the CRM information. The next thing we're going to do, when you created this record, you also created a portal record that will carry into all of the records and screens that you create over here. This particular screen is called the Marketing Recruitment Portal, Marketing Requirements Portal. What do we do in a requirements portal? Well, it's a multi-row, having another record. You can put as many records in here as you want to. Basically, we put in the proposal element they're going to be working on. If you're not familiar with the work breakdown structure, I suggest that you go look at the references in the reference data and learn more about what a work breakdown structure is. But I'll give you the basics of it. When you create a work breakdown structure, the first thing you do is add a proposal element. When you first breach a proposal and start looking through the information, they're not probably going to be organized in the way that you would actually produce the output from the proposal. But what you have to do when you're working on a proposal is to find whatever approach you're going to be using as far as breaking down the proposal. It depends on your company. I'll give you an example of a civil engineering company that I worked with. Basically what they did is they would first look at the proposal on its basic merits, and they would put in the basic things about the proposal in the 1.0 or the work breakdown structure number for this particular part of the proposal. When you added the proposal number over here, it passed over and automatically added itself to the proposal. If I go to the next record, all the things that are in here all have the same proposal number in the purple field. What happens in this field here is that you're using the marketing requirement to draw in the first thing of the 1.0. If you're going to another project element or task within the proposal that you have to identify and define, you would change the number appropriately. For example, if I came in and all I was doing initially was assigning people and assigning budgets to do the proposal development, and then I was breaking down all the elements within the proposal, I would start out maybe in the 1.0, and I would look at the initial proposal meeting where you bring in all the people that are in your company that would be related to doing the work and tasks for that particular proposal, and have a kickoff meeting. Kickoff meetings are where you discuss the proposal, and in some cases maybe the proposal has things that you cannot bid because you don't do that work, but they know that you have things that they feel you can do for them. So what you need to do is, even though the proposal is identifying a lot of work and maybe some of it you do and some of you don't, you can still put in a proposal for those items and also put in which ones you will not bid and then the ones you will bid, and you would have comments in your proposal that you send out that you develop saying, we are not going to bid this particular item. I'll give you an example. Say I was further down the list and I had a civil engineering company, and the first thing we had to do was go out and survey a location, either a piece of land or maybe a building or something that's out there that we needed to survey to get all the information for it. We'd start out initially with maybe the proposal elements and go to it, and as we cycle down through maybe 2 or 3 or 4, for example, like 1.2 up to maybe 4 is when we start looking at the survey stuff and how we're going to produce all the requirements that are in the customer's proposal that we want to send them. So in this case, if I got down here and say this is the reason for this thing is going to be a survey, we're going to do the survey, I would go to the new record, see the line there, this is a new record. I would put in the data for the survey and type it in. I already have the proposal number. Then I would go in and I would say marketing proposal requirement 4.0 survey. And then I would go in and I would identify, say the information from their proposal is we have 100 lots and we need all of them surveyed and laid out for home building. I would address how I would be doing the survey, how I'd prepare the survey, and how I would take the elements of that survey and then provide it back to the client in our developed proposal for them. Now you can break down the survey. Say for example, I say it's 4.0 is the basic baseline for the survey. And then I wanted to do a 4.1, which was maybe looking at the lots from the standpoint of how they're architected in their prepared design. Or maybe we're going to do, as a company, we're going to do the bid as far as the land and how we're going to address each lot and schedule each one of them being done until they're closed and all of them are done. So what we would do then is we'd write in the proposal information after we titled it. We'd come down after it's all for that 4.0 thing we're doing in the civil part. We would put all of our data in this field for that particular portion. You would not try to put the entire proposal element in one breakdown. It would all be for like 4.0, 4.1, 2, 3, and so forth. You can even do a 4.1.1 if you needed to. It's up to you how you do your work breakdown structure. The next thing is who is the project manager? Well, in this case, a project department, rather, I would go ahead and put the department in for survey. And then I would go in and say the project manager assigned, and then I would go ahead and pick from the different project managers that are available. Now I'm going to explain what's going on here. Each time you create a new project and then you add a project manager in this particular screen over here, it's going to add them to the drop-down list for that particular proposal. So in this case, there's one person, Ben Cole, who's working on, at this point, on the project manager for the project 2. Fred Smith is in one, and Martin Yates is in one. The more project managers you add per each project, those will show up in the numeric order that they were processed in, as far as which proposal they were working on, in alphabetical and then numeric order. It's pretty straightforward. Again, whatever proposal you create will be tagged on to the person's name. And of course, these employees should be project managers. Maybe they're multitasking and have more than one job that they do. So we'll go ahead and add those in the first place over here in the project managers list. As I showed before, you can also go back like to the first record and go up and say, go to the last, go to the first. It's your option. The next thing we're going to do is that the estimated budget price may be put in here as soon as you have enough information to generate an estimate budget. We're going to go beyond that, of course, where we're going to go to the operations group or the production group that is doing the work and estimating all the all the cost. And then the person up here with price is the marketing group, where they're going to add G&A and profit and overhead, and then they'll put in that particular number. There will also be the operations or your other production group that's going to provide the information that you need in order to generate the cost estimate. Unloaded, as they say sometimes, and then this would be the loaded number estimate. The marketing project's status. As the project moves down through all these elements, I'm going to show you at the very bottom, there's an edit. If I click the edit and then bring over this screen, when we talked about before on marketing project status, we have all these different things that can be going on. If you want to edit it to fit the kind of work that you do, I provided some of the elements here, and you can just say, for example, you're not going to do a finalized proposal. You would just take it out and put it whatever you want to call it in there. Maybe it's a preliminary proposal or whatever type of proposal elements you would go through. And as you leave that status in here, that should be related to whatever this is up here. The requirement may be survey. So in this particular case, if I drop into the proposal status, I'm putting in what that particular proposal status is at the time that we're working it. So for example, if we have a project meeting or a marketing meeting or whatever it may be, that is what is happening as the project is going along. And this is the meeting marketing status. So the marketing group understands what portion of this requirement is going on and what is happening in that everything. Now this is more of a primary field. This is the marketing budget element. This is immediately tied to the requirement where when you click on this drop down and go through the items, these are things that are related to how you're going to work this requirement all the way through proposal, all the way through your deliverables and deliverables that you may have from vendors as well. Once again, you can edit it to add what you are doing in your company as far as managing the information. You can see by some of these elements that they're pretty much in the sequential order of the way you do your development for your proposal. If you do not want to do some of these things, make sure that you've already identified that you have things like the task manning, and that is related to the project basic information. For example, all these things are budgeting and development of the proposal and then working in all the budgets and doing the things in the area of all the blue fields as far as the buttons are concerned. So what you do is when you go through these is to identify those particular elements that you're going to be doing as far as the project is concerned. This may sound a little confusing initially, but you will find very quickly that it is actually very rational, and it works right along the lines of referencing and setting up the initial work that has to be done within the program development for the project requirements. That's really where we're at, is in working on the project requirements that straddle all these efforts right here on the screen. Now the next thing we're going to do after we have the field open is we're also going to go down and we have a drop down that allows you to set the requirement schedule number. Since the work breakdown structure is what you're working on, these are all the different screen elements that you can go through, like 1.011. Now you can go in and edit those over here and edit them on this screen. Add a new one or edit within the screen. So if I said I wanted to have a 1.1.1, I can come up here. I can go ahead and put in the 1.1. As soon as I let go, it's added to the system and it's automatically put in numerical order. This is not a small thing. This is really interesting how this works. In a lot of cases, a database is not savvy enough to put things in the order you need them. So what we've done is we set up a numeric system where you can actually add it and edit it, and then it'll automatically put it in the sequence where it belongs. If you want to edit the current one that's in there, you would click it, and now that one would come up. If I wanted to edit this one, I could edit it. It really depends on how you want to structure this. Once you start creating these numbers, I would leave them in there, because what happens is, in general, these things will repeat on each project. For example, I wouldn't wipe them all out and then put your own numbers in here. I would leave in the generic ones so that you can use them. And if you're not going to use a 1.1.1, just skip over it and use the next thing, like 1.2. It's really that simple. It's logical, and you're able to do it. In this case, I put 5 characters in, or 5 number characters in here, up to 1.5. You can add 1.6 or whatever it is you want. And once you've created them, it just builds your list. For this example application, I put in enough that you have 5 different generations up to the 4.5 for each element we're going into. Now, in some cases, you may never reach a 6 or a 7 as far as doing your particular proposal development. So you would have all your numbers in place in order to add them. Now, in order to get back, we're going to use the app map for our one click to return. And now we're back in this screen. In any place that you're working with the app map, it should be able to navigate to any one screen in the application. Okay, let's look at a record that now has information. Initial marketing meeting, proposal number, the actual initial proposal meeting is in here, and we're going to be assigning people and time and project managers and a lot of things in these fields over here to assimilate the information so that we know what the budget and information as far as who's going to do what and who's going to be assigned to whatever element we're working on. We've gone down here and we say, here is the department. It's operational lead project manager, and his name is Fred Smith. The cost estimate for this particular budget is $1,100 for this element. Okay. Each time you move to a different screen, you're able to put in an estimate. For example, this one's 900 and so forth. So if you have 10 people coming to a meeting for 2 hours and they have different labor rates, you're going to see different things that'll pop up here as far as an estimate for this budget element in order to get it completed. So as each one of these go down here and the marketing group does an initial estimate, that will change when, say, for example, all the project managers have done their budget preparation and their manning and all that over here and their planning and task stuff. Now that may change, but this is a budget estimate for who? Marketing. These people also have their thing like manning and scheduling, and those numbers are the cost numbers. This is the price number for running the proposal. Now, if you're running down to the thing like survey, and they give you a rough estimate from the marketing group for the full price of it, it may be a limiting factor. In other words, they have measured maybe that the prior work that they've done in the past should not exceed a price of a certain amount to that particular element. And it's up to the project manager for, say, for example, for survey to make sure that that number matches, or if it's going to increase by some amount, then he wants to notify the people in the marketing group that it may exceed their price, because basically he's looking at his cost. If he has the loaded numbers and knows what it's going to cost for that thing to be loaded, say it's 35% loading, that includes G&A and profit, then you know that this is not going to work and you need to let the people at marketing know that. But you start out with estimates. The reason I'm picking survey is I have done a lot of work with Civil Engineering Group, and I can pretty well tell you every project that they did and how it worked as far as what was the estimated number opposed to the labor number. And it has a lot to do with travel to the site where they're doing the survey, how many people are required, and what kind of equipment, and what is their equipment cost just to use it. There is a set price. For example, if you're going to use a survey device to do a survey, there may be different things that are required as far as equipment that can vary the price depending upon that. And then the topography you're working in. If it's a forested site and you're going to clear it, there's going to be a lot of issues about doing the taking the time in order to do the survey with obstacles that are in your way. Okay, so there's a lot of things like that. Or if it's a build-to-print company and they've done a project that is similar and they have the basic estimates that you have done in past projects, this helps to drive the budgeting that you're doing. The marketing status and marketing element pretty much tied to whatever WBS breakdown you're working on, and then the sequential number here. And remember that we added the edit in order to work within this. Now, one of the things I'm going to point out here is that as we're working through these screens, is that you have to organize your proposal development based on how you're going to present the information back to your client. So you have to consider when you're building this and how you're doing it, that you have the proper information and you've covered all the bases in the process. If you leave out a requirement element and don't provide the information back to the client, he may dump you as a offer for a proposal to be done to them. It's clear that sometimes people, from my experience, do not evaluate the proposal correctly and they skip over elements, and then the client comes back and says you are not performing or non-performing, and your request is going to be denied for your particular submission of that bid. So you really have to be careful when you're doing the work. The good part of this is if you have a structure for WBS and you've created it before, you can go back and look at another project, say like I'm in project 24 and I want to go back and look at one because it's very similar. I can compare all the budgetary numbers and the structure of the WBS and all the work I did in preparation for that particular project and make sure that I have a close match or something that provides the data that's required in order to do this proposal. Okay, so let's go back and do a little refreshing. We created a project and we're now looking at the marketing requirements portal, and we're working down through all the steps through the marketing process in order to create the budget baseline. Now we have not done a timeline yet, but we're doing something very similar to it. And what it's going to do is it's going to take all the elements they're working through and estimate those. And we're going to be looking at those when we go through all these different screens over here. As I stated before, say for example, these are popover screens. If I click one and it pops up, it's going to be carrying the basic information over. It's going to show you the element and the requirement ID number. Now, be aware that in some cases in certain screens you're going to have to pick these again and set those numbers, and they're in there. For example, when you come over to the screen, you may have to put in the proposal number unless it's carried over from this first screen. Some screens do and some screens don't. In this case, they're bringing the information over with them. But when we get down to this layer down here, you have to pick, for example, project example 1 or project 2, which is design engineering for a test bench. These are the different things we're looking for. Now, you would do a proposal cost would be something that you would be working on as far as, in this particular case, for the marketing group. You're going to put in the cost, not the price, but the cost. When the project gets loaded, and the budget is reviewed by the marketing group, then the price will be added here for that particular element for that particular requirement. Then the estimated price was already going to be put in here from the review that you did, and then the element price. Now, what is the element price? The element price is when you look at this actual item down here, the project manager for the group that's doing this, say he's the survey group, is going to put in or provide the cost, and then the marketing group will put in the price that they feel is the one, not the estimate, but the actual price. And then the budget price is within the budget or not within the budget. If they put the budget in and there's an issue, you want to put in the budget price so that you know that you're working against a budget thing and you're refining your proposal to meet your budget that you have to do for the client. Then down here is proposal comments. You can put any comments in that are related to this, and so can the marketing group. For example, if they say, you put your number in, you say your cost is 16 grand, and they come back and say that is 30% higher than anything we've done before, you need to find out why it's so high, so much higher, and state why it has to be higher than it has been for these kind of projects for this before. That way the marketing group now can relate this back to the client and give them reasons why. If they ask, why are you higher? We're higher because you did 100 plots last time for survey, and this one's 125, and the average time to get one done with that many and weather conditions during that season will make it run higher as far as being able to get it done within that time. So things are actually seasonal unless you're a build-to-print house and everything's under a roof. There are going to be times when you have to also regulate in that. So I might want to go back, looking up here, well, this is February 6th, it's winter time. How much is that going to affect the project if I start it next week? And what the weather will do if it snows or rains or does something like that, how it will extend, or how many more trips will I have to make out to that location to do the survey if there's muddy fields and we have to wait for it to dry for a few days. That's going to actually impact your planning. If you don't build some kind of a relief for issues like weather and identify those and make notes about them, you can even look forward, say maybe 10 days out from the date that this is occurring as far as when you're starting it, to make sure that their weather forecast will meet the requirements of actually going out and doing the work, or you're going to have to change your timeline. Okay, with all that said, this is still another scrolling portal, so all the information that you're providing is for each element as you're going through. You're starting to refine all the stuff that is going on as far as the elements. Now, I'm not going to go all the way through this and explain everything, because I'm going to go through each one of these individually, and I will return to this to show you how to do it precisely so that you know what each element will need in order to get it done. Before we leave this screen, I want to point out another thing. If it's required you have to go to this company and you haven't been there before, we've included a map, and what the map will do is it'll pop up. Now you have to be aware you have to have an internet connection for the map. So if you don't have one, you're going to have something where you're either using a 2G or 4G or 3G or something like that, or have a thing that's either an iPad or iPhone that has the ability to use internet or something in order to see the maps. This is using Google Maps, and if you're familiar with Google Maps, that's great. If you're not, you can go to Google's website and get all the breakdown in using the map, and it has all those attributes built in here, so you'd be able to do that. For example, popping in and changing your topography, what it actually looks like if you're doing a survey, and what kind of land you're actually looking at, where that location is at as far as that company is concerned. You can also edit this and go in and put the actual location where you're doing the work and it's not going to affect the actual address. So it's over here for the company address. So you'd be able to see the actual site that you're going to be working with and see if it's mountainous, desert, or what kind of thing. Is it covered in trees or brush or whatever as far as doing your work? So there's a lot of things going on in this application where you have the coverage to do those kind of things. Clicking off a popover hides it. Okay, what we're going to be doing next is we're going to come back to this screen and we're going to start down through each individual popover in the project top level information that we're going to be doing. From when we get our budget and scanning and scheduling and all these things taken care of, we're going to move on to producing. If you're a build to print house, maybe you're doing a project specification, and using the portal, we'll go through each screen. If you're doing drawings, you have all your drawing information in here, inventory, purchasing, and quality assurance. And then down here we actually have a labor work order and a materials work order and a combined one for producing for the client, or if you're not going to produce one for the client, these will be the records of everything that was taken in for labor, materials, and anything like services that you did outside or inside. And of course, related in all this is if you have vendors or services that are done on the outside, that all will be accounted for in this area. So this kind of gives you a breakdown what is going to happen in this screen. Once again, like I said, if you are a company that has specific requirements that are off the normal path and you need them added to this application, that can be done. Okay, thank you for taking this video.